that not every place was like Gold Sky. She knew there were rumors about her family in New York, but that, due to her mother's family, the Baptistes, they were simply written off as eccentric. New York's 400 may not understand the life her mother had chosen, but first and foremost, her mother was a Baptiste, and that meant her choices were to be accepted, even if thought strange. It might have bothered her if the joy and love of her family had been anything but sincere. But as it was, the affection and loyalty between her parents, all three of them, had served as an example of the very thing Florence hoped for as a young girl. One person to love was fine and a rare thing indeed, but two? Two hearts that beat for yours? Now that was a miracle, a gift of untold value. And it was what Florence wished for herself now that she was a woman of marrying age. She was a woman in her prime, and a good-looking one at that. This would normally be an advantage in the ways of love, but Florence's needs were specific. She wanted those two hearts beating for her, to give herself in the same way and have her love multiplied, not divided. However, Gold Sky was not the place for such romantic overtures to be explored. Woefully lacking in eligible men for a lady seeking only one but two? That was positively Herculean, even in such a place as Gold Sky. Florence patted the ribbons she'd intertwined in her updo and straightened her shoulders. The women in her family were accustomed to taking on the insurmountable and making it their own. This would be no different. There was a dance tonight, and Florence was determined to make her best showing. Hence her daring attire and efforts with makeup and hair. "Where are you going tonight?" Delilah asked, tipping her head to the side. She could see from the set of her sister's shoulders and the gleam in her eyes that she was hatching a plan. But for what? "To a social event." "Which social event would that be?" Florence turned back to the mirror and smiled at her reflection. She looked lovely and fresh, perfect for drawing the eye of two suitors. It was what she wanted. Two suitors, and one way or another, Florence was going to get what she wanted. She raised her eyes and smiled into the mirror. "Why, a dance, of course." It was common knowledge a dance was the perfect setting for romance. Tonight more so as it were a special dance. Tonight's event was a singles dance, an opportunity for the unattached to mingle and enjoy an evening of frivolity. It would be the right atmosphere for casting her nets a little wider than she'd been previously afforded in her romantic efforts. Florence had been industrious, and was known for her enthusiasm in the pursuit of a goal, but for all her energy, there was little forward progress in her quest for two husbands. "You cannot mean to entice two men into such an arrangement." "Such an arrangement?" Florence's hands went to her hips and she pursed her lips. "It's a dance, not some sordid crime ring, Delilah." "A dance? You really think I'm so naive as to believe that's all you have in mind for tonight?" "Yes. Yes, I do." Delilah crossed her arms in answer, her sharp eyes missing nothing. So flinty was her sister's gaze that Florence nearly buckled. Nearly, but not quite. Instead, she beamed at Delilah, gray eyes practically sparkling. "Unless the town-sponsored single soiree intends to be the site for a nefarious syndicate, which it does not, then yes, it is just a dance. And I haven't a clue what two men you are referring to." Her voice was cool, even. It was the picture of collected respectability. But Delilah remained unconvinced. Florence abhorred her sister's attention to detail. "I know very well that you've been in a spree of getting acquainted with the eligible men in town," Delilah said, shaking a finger at her sister and making Florence frown. "I wasn't aware that I was expected to keep a nun's hours. I am, after all, a woman in her prime." "You are, Flo, and I know what your preferences are in the way of matrimony."